And we were concerned about writers being able to address the issue of the short story. So we did interviews with them. And it was really well done. And what came out of that was a sense that we really need to promote the short story genre more further. And so I've been the director since '94, and we hold conferences every 2 years. I think you've been there since, was it?
I think the first time was 94.
94? Okay.
Yeah, that was when you had a new pilot
Yeah,
at Iowa.
And Iowa State.
Yeah.
And we had out in Iowa State one time, and Iowa University another time.
Yeah.
And so forth. And the conference is one that brings together some 30 to 40 writers with scholars talking about the short story genre. The next one will be in Vienna in 2014, and then in Shanghai in 2016. 2010 was the first time we had writers from Asia there. And this is a book that I did, it took place in Toronto, and this is the Taiwan writers, all Taiwanese writers, and so forth. It's the first time that they had been to the conference, and I simply decided if I could get the Council of Cultural Affairs in Taipei to support them coming, I would do a book on it. So we got 12 writers to come. And I did an anthology for it. And actually at that conference we held a session in which only the Taiwanese writers appeared, and we invited, in Toronto there's a huge number of Chinese there. We held at the library and the Chinese came, and so they held the session in Chinese. I did not understand what they were saying, but it was really well done. And it's called The Borders as Fiction, Writers of Taiwan. And that came out in 2010. So, and then last year, this one took place in North Little Rock, Arkansas, in all that heat. A global anthology of short stories. And this is one of all of the writers who appeared at that. What I decided to do with this one was not to put it together in any capacity in terms of a theme, or in terms of cultures, or in terms of gender. I just put it all in alphabetical order. So when you buy it, you have to read everything. You can't say, well, I don't see what the African Americans are saying. Well, no, you have to read it. And if you don't like it, then you can put it down. But that's what I decided to do, and that was the only way it could work. Another one, I'm actually going to read a couple of things from this one. This is the Art of the Short Story. This came out in 2005. What happened is, as I said, I'm more the scholar and promoter than the writer, though I might read something that I wrote tonight. Writers are sometimes just tired of scholars raking them over the coals and so forth in text in terms of saying, this is what Moira Crone is really saying in this book, or this is what Richard Ford believes, this is how he expressed himself before. Because half the time we're wrong. So I contacted writers and I said, if I can get publishers to accept it, would you be willing to write your sense about the short story? And your sense of also in terms of how scholars misrepresent you in the short story. And they said yes, and I was surprised that people like Damien Phillips and Richard Ford and others came forward and addressed it. I just want to read a couple of comments from some of the things that they said, and then we can talk about that later. I'm going to start with the poet that we all know, I think. And this is Amir Baraka. He says, the short story should be a sacred form, since it's the most common way we tell our lives and everybody else's. That's why, in my opinion, the most effective kind of story is short indeed, very short and pointed. Short enough and pointed enough to make your teeth curl. Then he quotes people like Kafka and Maupassant and Dumas. And he says, it does not cease to exist, it goes somewhere else. Another dimension is a good explanation. Someone borrowed my book, he says. But even then, when it disappeared, the mysterious unwinding remains. In fact, you hear me passing some of this on to you. So it reappears itself in your head, making revolution. He goes on to say, what is one difference is the dependence on rhythm. The great short story writers see rhythm, of course. I don't think you can make the most penetrating use of language as content or form without it being rhythm opening. It is the splitting of the one into two. What you said the other day, Rodger. What follows the one going on? Forward, the I and the being, the ego and the entity, the woman, always bloom, since everything issues from the bloom, the black hole. The manifestation of the I that sees, the air that bees, B-E-S is how he spells it, of course. The proof, the conclusion, there is be and at. Two things are one thing, and one not thing is the whole. So he goes on to say, I'm saying that the short story always exists as water dipped for drinking from an unlimited water, a big sea. To get it out, the water to drink requires me to be at that place to dip it. The rhythm is the dialectic that creates description. Everything is a story. Rhythm is the most basic. The shortest of all models, the be and the at. To separate these together, looking is the open story, the tale, time and place. Together as flow is the rhythm, the endless story. So, the story wants to make sense. The poetry is what makes sense out of it. Poetry wants. Short story wants something. Something is what poetry is. Short story gives it a name. Paul Singh says, writing is never easy. I mean, real honest writing. Writing that lives. Writing that gives a new dimension to the way we breathe, look, see, view the world and ourselves. Through the ages, men and women have written about their agonies in wanting to write the great poem, story, book, play. And all of these provide valuable lessons for the new seeker of these elusive glories. And he goes on to say that being a writer, particularly in Singapore, is very difficult if you want to be honest. It is tough to be a writer in a small place like Singapore, especially if you want also to be honest. I have long suspected that one reason why our writers have not made more of an international impact is the fact that we are too shy, too afraid, you know what I'm saying this? Too fearful, too embarrassed, too ashamed, and too cowardly to engage with even our own small honesties, let alone the big ones. For too long, to be honest, was to betray family, honor, personal integrity, public morality, and so forth. For too long, our writers thought the best way out of this quagmire was not to write about anything remotely verging on what really happened or what actually happened. One more. Lucy Ferris, a short story writer on the East Coast, feels that the short story is in danger, not of being forgotten or slowly dwindling away, because of its usefulness. It is used in high school, in college writing classes, as a jumpstart for new writers, in advertisement, and finally in MFA programs. From her point of view, it has become so user-friendly that it is almost impossible to retain the value of the short story as a unique, solitary, and irreplaceable reading experience. At the same time, she feels that this is what we must do if we are to prevent the literary form from going the way of the verse epic of the public epistle. Finally, I mention this myself because I propose the point of view, therefore, that the short story is an active and not a passive form, that it screams its definition as it writes its own story. In this way, the genre is both the painting and the painter, as hospitable with the maintain, on the story and the teller, as Blaze and Borges maintain. Allow me to address this issue from a different perspective, one that may seem irrelevant, but is critical and useful in understanding the many thoughts and ideas about the short story genre inherited in this text. When I first visited my in-laws in Jamaica, I mentioned this day, I noted that when someone left the house, he or she said, "I'm not here," as they were leaving. Now, this saying is completely different from the moment "I'm leaving" that I would expect. The "I'm not here" expresses the fact not yet in evidence. At the same time, those in the reality of the person, those in the reality of the person still standing in the room. I believe that the mystery that hospital spread speaks of, the mobility that Baraka sees, mutability in effect, constantly changing the pragmatism and uncertainty that overwhelms Ford, and the cultural history of Blaze represents the phenomenon. The evidence of a short story in our purpose, in particular in our creative minds, and the certainty that before long it will not be there. That is why I personify the short story in my brief definition, that the short story is what it is just before it becomes a novel. Because I believe the short story knows it is one long before the writer does. It sits idly by, waiting for him or her to try different approaches, change symbolism and metaphors, try new sentence patterns, even shorten its length, and just waits until the writer realizes that what is done is enough. Ford spoke of less is more, because the more difficult thing to do is in the short story. Hopefully, if the author is attentive enough, he or she will end it before he messes it up. I think that the short story assists the writer in the knowing. And finally, I will give you the preface to this to sort of tie up the sense of this boy and the man that I spoke about before, and the definition. Short stories have always been more than fiction to me. When I was a freshman at Oklahoma State University, and now Oklahoma A&M University, and now Oklahoma State University, I encountered a form of racism with which I was unfamiliar and which I did not expect. Growing up in the town of Muskogee, Oklahoma, with its segregated school systems, prejudice and racism were things that happened in the streets among ignorant folks. And the respect for education was so prevalent that anyone striving for it achieved a certain amount of respect. Families that kept their children in school and later sent them on to college were admired, regardless of race or income. So when I hit the campus and found racism and prejudice among students, I was in shock. It was not unusual to be walking to class and hear the word nigger being yelled out. Of course, you would never tell who said it, because when you looked in the direction of the voice, no one was looking. Occasionally someone would be swearing at you, but you had no way of knowing that this person had yelled it or he was simply daring you to say something. Or you would be walking and 2 or 3 girls behind you would be speaking of your body parts, in particular what you have between your legs. And they would be saying, "Now, I bet he has a big one in black. Look how black he is." And they would say, "Hey boy, you like white stuff?" And when you looked around, they would all be giggling. Once in a while, one would have a very red face. I did not know how to respond to such ugliness and meanness. By the time you got to class, you were so angry and embarrassed that you just sat there holding back the tears, trying to listen to the lecture. You could eventually get yourself together because there was no fear of being called by the instructor. For the professor, you did not exist. One professor did call me once. He was in the first class. He called me by my name, Mr. Lee, and said, "You know, no Negro has ever graduated from this class." I thought he was somebody ahead of himself. And I replied, well, no Negro's ever been in this class. So if you would just teach, I would try to learn. I had a lot of mouth even then. But in reality, I was scared to death. I had a lot to learn, and I didn't know if he was going to let me. I left before the class was over to giggles and laughter. I cried silently all the way to the dormitory. I worked my butt off in that class to get no better than a C, no matter how hard I tried. I think it was a class in physics, but to this day I cannot be certain. I must have gone through that first class in a daze. To survive, I wrote. I would write poetry, short stories, or simple thoughts about what had happened. 2 yells of nigger would be a poem. The girls' rude comments would become thoughts of reverie or some essay about my family. Once I had urine thrown on me from a passing car, and that was enough for a short story. I had plenty of material for my evening pastime, and I probably wrote something every day, and from the material. I only lived about 100 or so miles from Stillwater, yet I did not go home until the scheduled holidays: Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, and spring break. I did not have enough money to call home regularly, so I wrote. I would like to tell Mom how I was doing, that everything was fine, the school was great. I was too tired and angry one evening to write these usual edited comments, and I sent her one of my personal poems instead. She would write back and say some encouraging words, something like, sometimes with a $5 bill inside the letter, and then sign your loving Mom. So I then started sending everything that I wrote, each day. I would save them and send them once a week or every other week. But she received many types of correspondence from me that semester. Dad, who depended on Mom to keep him informed about me, asked her one day, how's he doing? Mom replied, well, I am told, he's doing fine. Then when Daddy asked what she meant, he said, well, he's writing letters and stuff. Daddy was somewhat puzzled and frustrated. What do you mean stuff? He said, well, poems and short stories. She said, well, why is he wasting his time writing poetry and such nonsense? In answer, Mom showed him what I had been sending her. Daddy worked harder than any man I'd ever known. And he was about to go to work. It was 5:30 in the morning. He sat down, read the poems and the short stories without stopping. Got up, said nothing to Mom, gave her the poems and things and left. Mom told me later that she had never seen such a look on his face. Well, maybe just once. It was Friday morning at school, and I had the luxury of a late class, 11 o'clock, and I was enjoying the time to sleep. I didn't have breakfast this morning because, well, it wasn't a big thing, and the next meal would be around lunch, and so I decided to stay in bed. But the morning was sunny and bright, and I simply wanted to rest. Staying in bed late is something that all freshmen enjoy, it not being the case at home. I got a call from the front desk that I had a visitor. I was shocked and scared. This could not be good, I said. I was not expecting anyone, and everyone I knew was at home or somewhere else. What could it be? Who could it be? I got dressed and went downstairs. To my utter amazement, there was my father sitting in the sofa in the lounge, waiting for me. He got up and when he saw me, he had the strangest look. Daddy, I said, what are you doing here? I was totally shocked. Glad to see him, expecting the worst. Clearly something was the matter at home. Or even worse, something happened to Mom. What are you doing here? Are you okay? Is Mom okay? Is something wrong? I was already close to tears and I didn't know why. Because my daddy never did anything like this. This could not be good news. I'm fine, he says, Mommy. I could see tears in his eyes. And your mother's fine, he says, nothing's the matter. Really, I'm sad. Are you okay? I said, yes. He said, you promised that there's nothing wrong. I said, no, everything is fine. Everything's okay at home as well. I just came to see how you're doing. And if you needed anything. The tears are about to come for sure now. Well, yeah, everything is fine. I said, you came out here just to ask me that, to see about me? You could have written me. My daddy seldom wrote. He relied on Mom. do that? Well, I went to see for myself, he said. There was a long pause, and then he said, I read your poetry and stories. Another long pause. You sure you're all right? We started walking together. I hugged him close. The tears were now streaming down my face. But with much joy, fear, sorrow, sadness, and all that occurs between father and son in such moments, he said, you know, you write good. I still could not say anything. I looked at him, he said, okay, you write well. And we laughed. We walked outside and started walking around campus. How did you get here? I asked. He said, well, he said, I borrowed your uncle's car. Now, my daddy could not drive a lick. He rode bicycles all the time. And the one time he got behind the wheel, he almost crashed. How in the world I started? He said, don't. I never thought of that. We walked for about an hour and then went back to the dormitory. I was going to this class today, and I didn't care. It wasn't until we were back in the dorm that I realized that I'd heard one yellow nigger, no one of the best comments about my manhood, no urine in the face. When he got ready to leave, Daddy gave me a hug so hard I thought he would crash me. But I did not complain one bit. Keep on writing, he said. I love you too, Daddy, I said. He waved, and I can tell that he was crying. So for me, short stories have always been more about real life, and it is no surprise that the life is often my own.